Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How's it going? Well, today's presentation, it's kind of a simple concept, but I wanted to do it because it's an important reminder, okay, that it's really helpful in our recovery to spend time outside in nature. We may not always be in the mood, but there's a lot of health benefits, physical benefits, as well as mental health benefits of doing so. So I'm going to go over some of the things that are good for us so that we could be inspired to do it a little bit more often. Okay, so here we go, nature and healing. All right, so you might have instinctively just felt that it feels kind of nice to be outside. Like sometimes it's just after being cooped up inside for a while, just going out just makes you feel better. You might have just observed that about your own experience. Or maybe you could think about times when you were out in nature in a park or at a beach or at a national park or something like that, and you just had like a whole different sense of inner peace and connectedness. So it's really for a good reason, right? There's actually been studies on this, and there's a lot of good effects from being out in nature, okay? So let's go over some of that. Okay, so one of the good things about nature, more of a psychological benefit, is that it kind of helps you actually put things into perspective, right? When you're inside, and not only indoors, but in your own head, problems seem so big, they just seem like overwhelming, and it feels like it's your whole world, just all the stuff you're experiencing. But then sometimes you go outside, and let's say you're like that woman walking in a park like that with mountains and big trees and big sky and bodies of water, and everything is so much bigger than you. And you realize, like, my problems are so small compared to this world, and I'm just like one small person, and things maybe not as bad as I thought. It's just something about being out there and seeing your little self in comparison with the bigness of nature that helps you put your life more into perspective, and your problems too. All right, so that's one of the things that can help. Another thing is that inherently nature is relaxing. We are often in a very frantic pace, just the way our society is. We're multitasking, we're on technology a lot. There's a lot of media, there's a lot of frenetic energy. And so when we go back outside, nature is still at its own pace. There's a certain rhythm of the way animals do things and the way plants do things and the weather. And when we spend time there, our inner rhythms start to relax back out into the nature rhythms. And it's much more natural for us. Human beings are meant to operate more that way. And so it relaxes us when we wind down a lot more, and just being in that nature rhythm helps us to feel a lot more calm, and you might have felt that already, but just thinking about it this way might spark it back up again in your mind, okay? And sometimes even just the quietness of it helps. It takes us out of our noisy mind when we observe on the outside and listen to a lot of the quiet, or even just like the subtle sounds of nature, like the sounds of water or the wind, or maybe a couple of small animals like birds. It just, it's a different kind of flavor of sound than the stuff that we hear on the media all the time, right? Or even music, right? It's a much more relaxing sound that comes into us. Okay, and just even the sight of it, the beautiful scenery makes us feel peaceful. So if you're a DBT person, this is very in tune with the self-soothe skills, because there's a lot of sensory stuff that's very soothing, and being outside could help us use that self-soothe skill, okay? Okay, another important aspect of nature is that it helps us feel more interconnected. So sometimes when we're struggling, right, when we're caught up in our problems, we feel very alone, or isolated. Like we feel like we're stuck in our own pain, and we're kind of alone with it, But when we're out in nature, it's a reminder that we're a human being that's connected to everything else on this planet. We're, part of nature too, and we're breathing the same air, the same molecules that are part of me are part of all the aspects of nature. And even physics shows that, everything is really just one big plane of energy. And sometimes, even if you don't know the technical aspects, and I'm not really an expert in all that stuff, there's something that makes you feel more connected to the whole, like almost like the mountains and the trees are kind of a part of me in some way, you know? And that interconnectedness makes us feel more at peace. They say, even in a lot of religious thoughts, like in Buddhism and spirituality, that the interconnectedness is part of our true nature. Like on a spiritual level, we're interconnected with everything. And when we're more on the physical level, we feel much more separate. And one of the great sources of suffering is feeling separate from the whole. And if you watch my video on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, one of the causes of suffering, outlining the Four Noble Truths, is feeling like you're separate from spirit. You're separate from God. You're separate from other people. And so when we bring back that feeling of interconnectedness, it brings us a much greater sense of peace and tranquility and, just, it's feeling so much better, right? So that's one of the benefits of nature too, right? It gives us more of an opportunity to feel that. Okay, another thing, and I could attest to this personally, is being out in nature helps you discover new things about yourself, right? You're now experiencing yourself in a different environment, right? You might be used to yourself in your bedroom, in your house, in your place of work, in your place of school, in a store, and now you're seeing yourself in a whole new environment, right? Now by rocks and trees and dirt and animals and, waterways and whatever, and being in that environment makes you see yourself differently. And if you're doing a physical activity out there, such as hiking on a trail or rock climbing or something to that effect, rowing, kayaking, it's a challenge. And working through that challenge and overcoming it, and we're working through some of the rough spots and the obstacles, gives you almost like a metaphor about your life. That if you could overcome it there and work through those challenges, you could also do the same for other parts of your life too. And, I've gone on some really tough hikes. I go to a national park almost every year, different national parks. And sometimes I do more than I ever thought I could. I push myself and I could keep going, even if I felt like stopping, right? What a great metaphor for life. And sometimes it's a great sense of accomplishment too, after you do more than you thought. And I'll have to say, that's one of the things that being out there could provide you. So let's say you're at home and you're on a treadmill. You could step off at any time. But if you're in the woods and you're a few miles out from the trailhead, you still have to go back, right? So you have to complete the journey. Just like in life, it's important for us to complete our journey and not back out too soon. All right, so there you go. Okay, so here's just a couple of benefits. Now, a lot of the slides to come have similar physical and mental health benefits, okay? So I'm not gonna say everyone every single time, but just know that there's benefits from living near forest and green space. So if you have a place of residence that's by nature, just having a house there versus in the city could actually be helpful. So people who live, let's say, near forests or green space tend to have fewer health complaints, lower rates of cancer, improved blood pressure and immunity, and longer life expectancy. Man, if that came in a pill, that would be unbelievable, right? But as a bonus, even psychologically, kind of like I was hinting before, lower stress levels, lower anxiety, and coping better with life's challenges. Probably because in nature, there are some challenges to overcome that you have practice with, right? Pretty cool, right? But if that's not possible for you, don't worry about it. It's still okay. Here's another thing that could be possible, perhaps, for you. There's a term in Japanese, I don't know the Japanese word offhand, but it basically translates into forest bathing. So it's almost like sitting out in a forest or spending a lot of time in a forest. And it just does something to you, just being there or meditating there. And on a physiological and psychological level. So it reduces your pulse rate, increases your vigor. You're kind of like you're energized. Less depression, fatigue, anxiety, and confusion. Confusion's a new one. And your urinary adrenaline and dopamine levels are decreased. So adrenaline has to do like when you're pumped up and preparing for stress. Dopamine has to do with the reward circuits, right? So when it calms those things down, you tend to feel more relaxed. So all that's been demonstrated by spending time in a forest, right? So let's say you don't have a forest near you. That's still okay, no problem. Okay, let's say even if you could just get to a park, there's benefits of exercising outside in nature versus inside, right? So instead of, let's say, going on the treadmill at a gym, if you took a walk in the park, there's more benefits, right? Or instead of going on a rowing machine in the gym, if you went out and rowed or kayaked in a local river or a lake, there's more benefits from doing it outside, right? So there's something about being in nature while you're exercising that gives you benefits beyond just the pure exercise itself. Okay. So again, there's physical benefits, reduces the risk of disease, reduces depression, anxiety, well-being, increases well-being and self-esteem. So all those kinds of things, probably more also, but those are just a few examples. Okay, so you feeling a little inspired? I hope so. Okay, so here's another fun fact. There's things called negative ions. So basically, it's like molecules that are kind of charged with electricity, and they're kind of floating around in the air. And they tend to be around areas of nature, like waterways and forests and things like that. And so when you're around those things and you're soaking up these negative ions, and they can go within you, it has beneficial effects. So it revitalizes cell metabolism, improves immune function, purifies the blood, and improves digestion. And also, the negative ions in the air help to purify the air. So you end up breathing in cleaner air when you're in nature because of the negative ions. Pretty cool, right? All right. Okay, so let's say you can't get outside today. Let's say it's raining out. Let's say it's cold out. If you have indoor plants, you could still get benefits even from having an indoor plant. Okay, and that's most of the time possible. Maybe unless you're in the hospital and you're not allowed to have a plant, but that's okay. But most of the time at home you can. Okay, so even just having a plant in the room can improve cognition, improve energy, and decrease pain. Pain, right? Holy cow. A plant in a hospital room. When I was saying hospital before, I meant like psychiatric hospital, where I know, at least for us, we're not allowed to have plants. But if you're in like a regular hospital, a medical hospital, you might be allowed to have a plant. And they found that if you have a plant in your hospital room, let's say after surgery or after a procedure, you tend to stay in the hospital a shorter amount of time and need less pain medication, right? And I think I cut and pasted the pain medication in the wrong spot. Sorry about that, guys. And it also, I thought this was kind of funny, reduce the negative comments that nurses put in patients' charts. So maybe that means you were in a better mood, you were a less cranky patient, just because of the presence of this plant. So they compared rooms with plants and without plants, right? So just even having a plant in the room could help us. All right, so let's say you can't have a plant. Okay, let's say that's not even possible, but you have a window. All right, having a room with a view of nature, that could be beneficial, even if you can't get outside, right? So people tend to heal faster just having a view if they're in the hospital. They tend to have more energy and better cognitive abilities at work. Okay, and also, if you get natural sunlight, even through a window, it improves your vitamin D levels because you need sunlight to activate the vitamin D, and it stabilizes your melatonin levels. And melatonin helps to regulate your sleeping and waking cycles. So it helps you get better sleep. Okay, pretty cool, right? Okay, all right, so finally, let's just conclude. I hope this information inspires you to get outside. Now listen, I know that sometimes we get in a rut and we just get lazy and we don't feel like going out. I know sometimes at work I get in a mode and I'm busy and I just stay in. But sometimes if you just force yourself to go outside, even that change of scenery can make you feel a lot better. In DBT, there's a skill called brief vacation as part of Improve the Moment. So even just getting outside for an hour, it's like taking a brief vacation. It gives your mind a rest. It helps your body, right? So let's be inspired. Try to do it more now if you can, okay? I'm recording this during the summertime, so where I am in New York, the weather is pretty nice, so it's possible. But even in the wintertime, even if you got some fresh, cool air, it could make a big difference, right? So do what you can to spend outside time in nature, okay? If you can meditate outside, that's even another thing you could try. And exercise outside when possible, even if it's just taking a walk, okay? And when that's not possible, try to spend time looking out the window, okay? The window might be there and maybe you're not even facing it, but try to look out the window, okay? And buy some indoor plants if you can. All right, so those are just some tips just to keep it fresh in your mind. All right, so I hope we'll get back to nature a little bit. All right, you feeling all naturized now? I hope so. All right, guys. Well, good luck with this skill and talk to you soon. All right, bye for